a werewolf shifter romance audiobook written by Catherine Stewart. Prologue. The cold of the ancient forest clung to Rhys. It sank deep into his bones, colder than any winter chill. He stood alone on a craggy peak. The wind, a mournful song through the skeletal trees. Below, the sprawling territory stretched out, vast, untamed, and dying. With every beat of his heart, Rhys felt the silent ache of the great fading. It was a creeping sickness, a slow, agonizing bleed for his kind. For generations, his pure bloodline, the moon howlers, had watched as their numbers dwindled, as their strength waned. His gaze swept the dark expanse. He saw the faint, ghostly imprints of ancient hunting grounds, places where his ancestors once ran in thriving packs. Now the quiet felt like a tomb. It echoed with the silence of the lost. He was an alpha, a powerful one, feared by many because his wolf, Shadowfang, knew no hesitation. Yet even his immense strength couldn't staunch the bleeding. His primal instinct screamed the truth. The Lycan race. It was fading. Soon, a memory, sharp as a wolf's fang, pierced him. His grandmother's voice, old, fragile. Speaking of the ancient texts, she'd always whispered of a legend, a final hope, the moon blessed, a human woman, touched by lunar magic, destined to appear when the darkness was deepest. Only she could reverse the fading. But how could a human, even a blessed one, change such a profound ancient curse? Still, he searched, he hunted, because he had no other choice. Because the burden of his dying people rested solely on his powerful shoulders. He felt the despair. It was a cold, venomous coil around his spirit. It tried to drag him down. But then, a stubborn spark ignited within him, a fierce, protective fire. He was an alpha. His pack, small as it was, depended on him. He would not surrender, not while a single breath remained in his body. Not while a flicker of that impossible prophecy held true. Suddenly, a strange tremor ran through the earth, a deep, resonant hum beneath his paws, even in his human form. It wasn't an earthquake. It was something else, something primal. And then, a scent on the wind. It was faint, intriguing, a delicate blend of something wild and untamed, yet utterly, undeniably feminine. It carried a strange sweetness, like wildflowers after a spring rain. But underneath, a faint, almost imperceptible thrum of power. Raw, untapped, a resonance that sang deep in his very bones. His wolf stirred. A low growl rumbled in his chest. His head snapped up. He scanned the distant horizon. His golden eyes, sharp as any predator's, narrowed. He didn't know what it meant. Maybe it was fate. Or maybe it was the first whisper of that forgotten prophecy, a flicker of hope, a perilous, exhilarating hope. He stood tall, his muscles tensed. He was ready, for battle, for destiny, for whatever the moon was about to send his way. He knew this. The Western Territory, raw and untamed, was about to be reshaped. His world tilted, and just like that, everything changed. The scent of lavender and starched linen. It filled Evelyn Thorne's chambers. It was a familiar, suffocating perfume, a constant reminder of her gilded cage. Her governess, Miss Albright, a woman whose spine seemed forged from iron, adjusted a pearl button on Evelyn's ball gown with a precision that bordered on surgical. Evelyn stood before the cheval mirror, a porcelain doll, draped in silk and lace. Her reflection, a stranger, stared back. Every movement, every breath, it felt choreographed, a performance, for an audience she neither knew nor cared for. "Perfect, Evelyn," Miss Albright murmured, her voice a dry rustle of silk. "Alpha Vance will be quite pleased." Evelyn's stomach clenched. Pleased. The word tasted like ash. She imagined Alpha Vance, his smile a thin, practiced line. His eyes were cold, assessing. He was less a fiancé, more a business partner, a means to solidify her father's empire. Her heart, however, yearned for something wilder, something real. She caught her own gaze in the mirror, searching for the girl who once climbed trees and dreamed of endless horizons. But she found only the polished facade of a future bride. Can love forged in desperation overcome ancient curses and societal chains, proving that true power lies not in control, but in unity? The question felt like a cruel joke. Control was all she knew. And just like that, her internal flaw, this quiet resignation, began to surface. Soon after, in her father's study, the air hung thick with the scent of tobacco and old leather. Silas Thorne, a man whose stern features were softened only by the glow of the fire, gestured to the heavy mahogany chair opposite him. "The final arrangements are set, my dear. The ceremony will be a spectacle, a testament to the Thorne legacy." Evelyn clasped her hands in her lap. Her knuckles were white. "Father, must it be so soon?" Her voice a fragile whisper. I feel unprepared." Silas chuckled, a dry, dismissive sound. "Unprepared? Nonsense, child. You have been prepared for this day since birth. This union with Alpha Vance will secure our position in the Western Territory for generations. His influence, our wealth, it is a formidable alliance." He puffed on his cigar. A cloud of smoke momentarily obscured his face. "A woman's duty, Evelyn, is to her family and her future. Sentiment has no place in such matters." His words were a familiar refrain, a cage tightening around her soul. She nodded, her gaze dropping to the intricate pattern of the Persian rug. Her desire for freedom, for a life chosen rather than dictated, felt like a shameful secret. It was an internal struggle she couldn't overcome. She was a thorn. And truth be told, thorns did their duty. That night, as she returned to her room, the soft glow of the gas lamp cast long shadows. On her vanity, amidst her silver-backed brushes and crystal perfume bottles, lay a heavy, embossed invitation. The words, "Alpha Alaric Vance and Miss Evelyn Thorne," were etched in elegant script. The date, circled in crimson ink, seemed to burn. It felt less like a celebration and more like a brand upon her very soul. The gilded cage had just had its lock audibly click shut. Maybe it was fate, but Evelyn felt a strange, thrilling tremor beneath her skin. Something beyond fear. A feeling of restless anticipation, as if her bones remembered a wilder purpose. Early the next morning, before the household stirred, Evelyn slipped away. She always did. Her only true escape came on the back of Whisper, her favorite mare. Her riding habit, a rich emerald green, blended with the verdant undergrowth as they galloped away from the sprawling Thorne estate. The crisp air, scented with pine and damp earth, filled her lungs, pushing away the stale perfume of her chambers. It was here, amidst the whispering pines and rugged canyons, that Evelyn felt a semblance of herself. Her spirit, usually constrained, stretched out like a wild vine seeking sunlight. She didn't know what scared her more, the confining life she was destined for, or this strange primal pull towards the untouched wilderness. They rode deeper. The sunlight dappled through the dense canopy, painting shifting patterns on the forest floor. Evelyn observed the raw, untamed nature around her. A hawk circled lazily overhead, its cry echoed in the vast silence. She felt a deep, profound connection to it all, sensing something more than just the mundane. A subtle hum, like a distant heartbeat, vibrated beneath her skin. This was the moon-blessed magic within her, a dormant energy subconsciously drawn to the wild, a whisper from a world she couldn't yet comprehend. As they followed a rarely used game trail, Whisper suddenly shied. Her ears swiveled forward, then back, and her nostrils flared. A distinct musky scent, foreign and primal, hung in the air. Evelyn tightened her grip on the reins. Her heart gave a sudden, hard thump against her ribs. She looked around, her gaze sweeping the dense woods. Nothing. Yet the air felt different. Thicker. What followed was a strange stillness. Even the birds seemed to hold their breath. Soon after, she dismounted, tethering Whisper to a sturdy oak. She moved closer to the source of the unsettling scent, pushing aside thick ferns and thorny bushes. The ground was disturbed here. A massive, paw-like print, unlike any domestic dog, was pressed into the soft earth. Not only that, but scattered nearby were broken branches, as if something enormous and powerful had moved with desperate force. Evelyn knelt, her fingers brushing against a patch of dark, coarse fur snagged on a thorn. It felt impossibly thick, like a winter coat. Her skin tingled, an odd vibration that resonated with the print. She didn't know what it was, but it was wild. It was powerful, and it didn't belong. This scene was a crucial setup for her deeper connection to the Lycan world. Meanwhile, the faint scent of copper and something else, something intensely animalistic and undeniably male, lingered on the breeze. It was a subtle, unsettling presence. As the wind shifted, she caught it again. A low, guttural sound, so faint it could have been the wind, but it wasn't. It was a mournful howl, a distant, raw, primeval howl that echoed through the forest, unsettling whisper, and sending a deeper shiver down Evelyn's spine. It was a hint of a presence she could not comprehend. The grand ballroom glittered, a kaleidoscope of silk and jewels, but for Evelyn it felt like a cold, brightly lit stage. She moved through the swirling crowd, offering practiced smiles, her inner thoughts a tempest beneath her serene facade. The constant hum of idle chatter, the clinking of glasses, it all blurred into an oppressive drone. She needed a moment alone, to breathe. And then, he was there. Alpha Vance. His presence was like a sudden drop in temperature. His gaze, usually coolly assessing, held a possessive glint that night. "Evelyn, my dear." Vance's voice was smooth, like polished stone. He took her hand, his touch firm, almost bruising, as if asserting ownership. "You look radiant, a credit to the Thorne name, a credit to my future Luna." Her skin crawled where his fingers rested. A subtle, almost imperceptible tremor ran through her, a response to an unseen pressure. "Thank you, Alaric." Her voice, she noted, was perfectly calm, a testament to years of training. Deep down, she knew the truth. There was no warmth between them. "I hope your evening is proving as pleasant as mine." He chuckled. A low, humorless sound. "Indeed. My territory, my pack, thrives under my watchful eye. Business, as always, is intertwined with pleasure." He leaned closer, his voice dropping, though his eyes remained sharp. "There are elements within these lands that require firm handling, my dear. Disorderly elements. Rogues. I find it rather charming, in a way, how quickly they come to heel when faced with true dominance." As he spoke, a predatory intensity entered his gaze. A subtle, almost imperceptible shift in his scent, something metallic and sharp, like freshly spilled blood, mingled with a faint, aggressive musk unique to him, brushed against her. She didn't consciously register it, but a prickle of unease ran down her spine, a subconscious warning from her moon-blessed self. His implication of control and dominance went far beyond mere military might. "Oh?" Evelyn managed. Her heart rate quickened. "And what sort of elements would those be?" Vance's smile widened, revealing a flash of teeth that felt too sharp. "Wolves, Evelyn, both two-legged and four. They misunderstand their place. They forget who controls the hunt. But soon, they will understand my place, and yours by extension." He tightened his grip on her hand. "I hear you still venture into the wild, alone." There was no question in his tone, only a chilling statement of fact. "That will, of course, cease once we are wed. Aluna's place is by her Alpha's side, secure, protected, within the pack's direct sight." Evelyn's breath hitched. His awareness of her secret ride sent a wave of terror through her. This wasn't concern, this was control, this was ownership. And just like that, the true, cold nature of her impending marriage solidified. This man wasn't just unloved, he was dangerous. What's worse, His words were laced with a hidden meaning she couldn't quite grasp, but her instincts screamed danger. His explicit allusions to wolves, pack, and dominance were not just vague threats. They were the first chilling hints of his alpha status and his corrupt intentions, a darkness far deeper than she could fathom. As the sky darkened outside the ballroom windows, casting long, menacing shadows, Evelyn felt a profound sense of foreboding. The luxurious room felt less like a celebration and more like a cage. Her dream of freedom felt fragile, about to shatter. The core emotional question now hammered at her. Can love forged in desperation truly overcome chains imposed by such power and corruption? The lavish ballroom felt miles away. Evelyn's silk gown, a cruel mockery of her inner turmoil, swished against her legs as she fled the stifling party. Outside, the sky had indeed darkened, just as it had in her ominous conversation with Alpha Vance. Now the first icy drops of rain began to fall, biting at her exposed skin. She called for her carriage, but the driver was nowhere in sight. A sudden, brutal blizzard descended without warning, a furious squall from the west that swallowed the grand estate in moments. Wind lashed Evelyn, ripping at her cloak, stealing her breath. Snow, thick and blinding, swirled around her. She struggled against the gale, desperate to find shelter. What's worse, her father's warnings about the wild had always seemed distant stories. Now they roared in her ears, cold and real. She pushed forward, her heart a frantic drum in her chest. She had to get away from Vance. She had to escape this gilded cage. But then she saw him, a massive, dark shape, half buried in a drift, thrashing weakly. It was a wolf. Yet this was no ordinary wolf. This creature was enormous, larger than any she'd ever seen, its fur thick and dark as midnight. Its guttural whimpers of pain cut through the howling wind. It was caught, snared, a cruel trap, teeth of steel, dug deep into its powerful leg. Because of that, desperation etched its every move. She felt a strange pull, an inexplicable empathy overriding her fear. Her heart pounded so loudly it roared in her ears. "Oh, you poor thing!" Evelyn cried, her voice thin against the gale. She knew the danger. She knew the risk. But something ancient within her, a force she didn't understand, compelled her forward. Instead of fleeing, Evelyn stumbled through the snow. Her body moved on instinct. Maybe it was fate, but she found herself drawn to the suffering beast. The sheer size of the creature, its snarling, pain-filled eyes, they should have sent her running. Yet, she felt a profound, aching sorrow for its suffering. Its golden eyes, even in torment, held a startling intelligence. They looked at her. Really looked at her. She knelt in the snow. Her gloved hands, usually so delicate, fumbled with the crude, heavy iron. The metal was frozen. It bit into her skin. "I'll get you out," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Just hold still." The wolf growled, a low, rumbling sound that vibrated through the frozen ground. It wasn't menacing. It was pain. And then, as if it understood, it stilled. It watched her. With every heartbeat, the tension thickened. She yanked, pulled. The metal was stubborn. Her fingers were numb. A bead of blood, red against the white snow, welled on her skin. Just like that, the wolf shifted. Not fully, but enough. Its leg elongated, muscles rippled. A powerful, scarred hand, tipped with menacing claws, emerged from the fur where its paw should have been. It clamped onto her wrist, not with aggression, but with a desperate, surprising gentleness. His fingers were cold, hard. The moment their eyes locked, a jolt, raw and intense, passed between them. It wasn't just physical. It was as if something inside her shifted. A hot current of energy coursed through her veins, answering a call she never knew existed. His grasp tightened momentarily, a flash of pure, primal male instinct in his golden eyes. And then, he collapsed fully, whimpering, his large frame shivering. He allowed her to free the last part of his leg from the snare. The sheer vulnerability of such a powerful creature struck her. This was no ordinary wolf. This was more, much more. As the darkness closed in again, driven by the swirling snow, Evelyn knew her world had tilted. The gilded cage had shattered. She didn't know how. Her body just moved. Evelyn somehow managed to half drag, half coax the immense injured creature through the deepening snow. It wasn't far. She knew of a secluded, hidden cave, nestled deep in the rock formations. A secret she'd found on one of her wild rides. It was barely more than a deep overhang, but it offered shelter from the biting wind and relentless snow. She didn't stop until he was tucked deep inside. The air was frigid. Still, it was better than the exposed forest. As the silence stretched, broken only by the blizzard's roar outside, Evelyn knelt beside him. His labored breaths fogged the cold air. The snare had ripped his flesh deeply. It was a terrible wound. She had to help him. But then, as her fingers trembled near the gash, his wolf form wavered. It rippled. Muscles shifted beneath the thick fur. Just like that, he began to change. His snout receded. His powerful legs shortened, thickening. Bone cracked softly, almost imperceptibly, in the quiet that followed. In that moment, a man emerged from the wolf. His skin was pale, his hair dark, his face, etched with sharp angles and grim determination, was a landscape of raw power and pain. He was impossibly beautiful and terrifying. Her breath caught. She gasped, a soft, breathless sound. The world seemed to narrow. What was he? What was she doing? Yet her heart pounded not with sheer terror, but with a strange, urgent need to protect him because he was hurt, because he was magnificent, and because a powerful, invisible cord now seemed to hum between them. He opened his eyes, those startling golden eyes, now set in a human face. They were clouded with pain, but recognition, a deep, ancient understanding passed between them. It wasn't words, it was feeling. A surge of power, primal and overwhelming, flowed from him into her. It clarified everything. He was a Lycan, a shifter, an alpha, and she was his mate. His mate. The very essence of his being reached out, raw and desperate. Great fading. Need. Mate. The words were not spoken aloud. They pulsed directly into her mind. She swallowed. Hard. "You're hurt," she whispered. Her voice trembled, a delicate thing in the vastness of the cave. She didn't know what scared her more, his true form or the terrifying, overwhelming pull she felt towards him. She found her small emergency kit in her saddlebag, her fingers fumbling with the bandages. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't pull away. With every heartbeat, she understood this was her choice. She chose him. Even then, come morning, the blizzard had calmed. The air was biting cold, but the sky was clear. Evelyn needed supplies, real medicine, food. Her small kit wouldn't be enough. Rhys, the name had settled in her mind, given to her by the unspoken connection, was still too weak to fully shift or move. His human form was more stable now. He watched her. His golden eyes, filled with both pain and deep concern, followed her every move. "I have to go back," she told him. Her voice was soft but firm. "To the ranch. I'll get what you need. They'll wonder where I've been." Rhys nodded slowly. A single word pulsed into her mind, clear as day. "Careful." It wasn't a command. It was a plea. A deep, raw fear for her safety because of their bond. He reached out a hand. His fingers, long and strong, brushed her cheek. His touch sent a shiver through her. It was hot. Electric. The space between them burned. This silent conversation, this raw connection, was more intimate than any spoken word. Because of that, she felt a profound commitment solidify within her. She returned to the ranch with a fabricated story about being lost in the storm. Her father, Silas, was frantic, then relieved. He was too consumed with her safety to truly question her, because he thought her a delicate flower. But then, He remembered the wedding, the very next day. "Evelyn, thank heavens! You must be exhausted. But my dear, tomorrow is the day. Alpha Vance will be here at first light." His words felt like a thunderclap. Her world tilted. Tomorrow? No, this couldn't be happening. Not now. Not when she had found him. Not when she understood her true purpose. Instead of feeling trapped, a fierce defiance ignited within her. She was not a doll. She was moon-blessed, and she was Rhys's mate. That night, Evelyn moved like a shadow. She gathered blankets, strong antiseptic, fresh game from the kitchen, and a large bottle of her father's finest brandy. She didn't think about the risk. She thought about Rhys. His quiet strength, his golden eyes, the agonizing pain she'd felt when he'd been snared. She knew this was a betrayal of her father, a betrayal of her duty. But it was also the deepest truth she had ever felt. By the time she reached the cave, the moon hung high and full, bathing the forest in silver. Rhys, stronger now, met her at the mouth. He took the supplies without a word, but his gaze, it held so many unspoken questions. She didn't know what scared her more, Vance's power or the dangerous path she was now choosing. She handed him the brandy. He drank deeply. He then spoke, his voice raspy, a low growl in his chest. "They call it the Great Fading," he rasped, his voice rough. "My kind, we are dying. Our magic weakens." He looked at her, his eyes piercing. "The prophecy speaks of a Lunar, a moon-blessed mate, one who holds the key." He reached out. His fingers brushed her wrist. A tingling sensation spread through her. Her bones remembered him. The air thickened. He was telling her everything. He was giving her a choice. A beat later, her hand found his. His touch was warm, real. And just like that, everything changed. She had stepped across a threshold. There was no turning back now. The moon, a silent witness, cast silver ribbons through the trees as Evelyn finally returned to the ranch. Her heart still thrummed from Rhys's touch, from his rasping words about the great fading. She had made her choice. There was no going back now. Her old life, her arranged wedding to Alpha Vance felt like a distant, suffocating dream. But then, the reality hit her. She had to live that dream. For now, she had to pretend. And just like that, the air thickened with unspoken lies. Come morning, the familiar scent of lavender and starched linen returned, a jarring contrast to the wild night. Evelyn moved through the wedding preparations like a ghost. She endured the endless fittings for her gown, the cloying discussions of seating arrangements. Her smile felt painted on. Each nod, each polite laugh was a performance. She was protecting her secret. Because if her father, Silas, or worse, Alpha Vance, ever suspected, what would happen? She didn't know what scared her more, their fury, or the loss of the exhilarating freedom Rhys had brought. She saw Vance often during these days. He was everywhere. His presence, a cold shadow, seemed to stretch across the estate. He spoke of his Ironclaw pack with a chilling pride. His voice, usually smooth, held a sharp edge when he discussed territory or order. She noticed the subtle way his eyes swept over the servants. It was less a glance, more a calculated assessment, a hungry focus. Not only that, but she saw how his men, always present, seemed to stiffen when he entered a room. They were fearful. Because they were loyal, he was their alpha, and she was supposed to be his Luna. One afternoon, during a walk through the gardens, Vance joined her. His touch on her arm was possessive, almost bruising. "Soon, Evelyn," he murmured, his breath cool against her ear. "You will be mine, the Luna of the Ironclaw, and our pack will prosper under my guidance. Our dominance will be absolute." His words were a promise, yes, but also a threat. He was like a sleek, dangerous predator. She felt a prickle of unease, a subconscious flinching of her moon-blessed core from his corrupt presence. He was nothing like Rhys. And just like that, the contrast screamed in her soul. Her goal was to maintain her facade, to protect her secret. She felt immense pressure, a terrifying fear of exposure. Yet, with every stolen moment of defiance, every secret thought of Rhys, a strange exhilaration bloomed inside her. She was a woman living two lives. One, a lie. The other, a dangerous, thrilling truth. She had to keep the deception perfect, because her very survival, and perhaps Rhys's, depended on it. Later that evening, beneath the cloak of a moonless sky, Evelyn found herself racing through the woods. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs. It wasn't fear, it was anticipation, because she was heading for the hidden cave. For Rhys. He was stronger now. His golden eyes, no longer clouded by pain, shone with an intense, captivating light. The cave, once a place of terrifying discovery, was now their sanctuary, their secret world. "You came," Rhys rasped, his voice still a little rough but filled with a quiet intensity that made her breath catch. He was in his human form, lean and powerful, his scars stark against his pale skin. He looked wild, untamed, and utterly, undeniably male. His very scent, pine, rain, and something else, something uniquely him, filled her senses. Evelyn offered a soft smile. "Of course, I brought more supplies." She set down her basket, her fingers trembling slightly when they brushed his. "How do you feel? Stronger? Because of you?" He watched her with an unnerving stillness. His gaze was a physical touch. "You move well in the forest now, for a human." He took her hand, his thumb tracing the line of her palm. "Trust your senses, Evelyn, not just your eyes. Feel the wind, taste the air, listen to the silence." He was teaching her to survive outside her gilded cage. He taught her how to recognize faint tracks, how to tell if a storm was coming even before the clouds gathered, because he was preparing her for a life she never knew she would have. "Your world. It's so different," Evelyn whispered. She sat beside him, the rough rock cool against her back. "Tell me more about the great fading, about your pack." Rhys sighed, a heavy sound. He leaned his head against the cave wall, his eyes distant. "My pack, the moon howlers. We follow the ancient ways, live in harmony with the wild. We are pure, untainted. But the fading, it is a sickness from within, from packs who mix blood, who lust for human power. It weakens our magic. It makes us less." His jaw tightened. He turned to her, his gaze piercing. "The prophecy, it spoke of a Luna, a moon-blessed mate, a human with dormant power. Your blood, Evelyn. It holds the key. It is the purity, the life our lineage needs to survive. Without it, my packs, all pure Lycans, we will simply cease to be." He was pouring out his soul, laying bare his greatest fear, his burden. Evelyn felt her own dormant magic hum, a soft, warm vibration in her chest. It responded to his words, to his desperation, to the weight of his truth. She reached out, her fingers brushing his cheek. "I believe you." Her voice trembled. She had to, because deep down, her soul resonated with his every word. And just like that, the lines between their worlds blurred, sealing their commitment. The air in the cave was thick with the scent of damp earth and Rhys. Evelyn was showing him a new poultice she'd prepared, her fingers gentle on his healing leg. His muscles, even in human form, twitched beneath her touch. He leaned back, his golden eyes watching her, a quiet intensity in their depths. The silence was comfortable, safe. But then, a subtle shift in the forest outside, the sound of snapping twigs, the faint, earthy smell of damp leather and unwashed men. It was wrong. Rhys stiffened. His nostrils flared. His gaze snapped towards the cave entrance. He was like a coiled spring, ready to strike. His face hardened. "Vance's patrol," he rasped, his voice low, urgent. "They're close. Too close." Evelyn's breath hitched. Her blood ran cold. Vance. She pictured his cold eyes, his chilling smile. The thought of him finding them here. It made her stomach clench. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She didn't know what scared her more, being caught, or what Vance would do to Rhys if he found them. Rhys moved with lightning speed. Before she could move, he pushed her deep into a narrow crevice in the cave wall, a space barely large enough for her. "Stay here," he commanded, his voice a low growl. "Don't make a sound, no matter what." His scent filled her nose. Protection. Primal. Overwhelming. He stood at the entrance, a formidable silhouette against the dim light, his body tense, radiating raw power. He was a sentinel, a protector. He was ready to fight. The crunch of footsteps grew louder. Voices, rough and guttural, echoed nearby. "Any sign?" a gruff voice called out. "Alpha wants this area scoured, says rogues have been seen, and—" A woman. Evelyn pressed herself further into the cold rock, barely breathing. Had Vance suspected? Had he seen her? "Nothing but deer tracks, Beta," another voice grumbled. Then a flicker of movement. Rhys's form seemed to blur. His muscles rippled. He stood perfectly still, his eyes narrowed, his gaze locked on the approaching patrol. His presence, immense and unseen, seemed to radiate a silent warning. A wave of pure, untamed alpha power pulsed from him, a warning felt more than heard. The air thickened. The patrol, just feet from the cave mouth, hesitated. One of them coughed. They shifted nervously. Their sense, distinct to a Lycan, filled the air. "Right," the gruff voice said, a note of unease in his tone. "Move on. Nothing here." And just like that, the footsteps receded. The tension broke. Evelyn slowly crawled out. Her legs were shaking. Rhys turned to her. His face was grim. His golden eyes, filled with both relief and a terrifying understanding of their peril, burned into hers. "That was too close," he rasped. "He's hunting more than just rogues. He's looking for you, Evelyn." His words were a cold reminder. The danger was not just their secret love, it was her very existence. And this, she realized, was only the beginning. The air still hummed with the memory of Vance's patrol. Evelyn's heart had barely settled since their close call. Now, every rustle of leaves, every distant shadow, it felt like an iron-claw wolf on her trail. She kept to her usual routines at the ranch, but inside, a knot of icy dread tightened around her spirit. Her days were a meticulous performance. Because she knew Vance was looking for her, and just like that, her gilded cage transformed into a gilded trap. One sweltering afternoon, while arranging flowers in the study, a mundane task she now detested, Evelyn heard hushed voices from her father's office. The door was ajar. Vance's voice, smooth and chilling, snaked into the room. "The ceremony is merely a formality, Silas. The true binding that will happen after the sun sets, when the moon is high, and her essence fully prepared." Evelyn froze. A tremor ran through her. Essence? Binding? What followed was a cold dread that seeped into her bones. Silas's voice, usually booming, was hushed. "Are you certain, Alpha? The ancient texts, they speak of unpredictable power, and the great fading is a fragile thing. It's too great a risk if the lineage isn't pure." Vance chuckled, a low, predatory sound. "Pure? My pack has its own strength, Thorne. We simply need to ensure the moon-blessed power is mine, to guide us, to rule. Her power will fuel my dominance, not some antiquated prophecy of dying bloodlines." Evelyn's breath caught. His words were a direct assault on the hope Rhys carried. Her own dormant magic, deep within, flared in silent protest. A painful, hot hum. Because of that, she understood. This wasn't just a marriage. This was a dark ritual. She pressed herself against the wall, her heart hammering against her ribs. Vance wasn't just marrying her for influence. He wanted her magic. He knew about the Moon Blessed. He planned to corrupt her. And just like that, the true horror of his schemes unraveled before her. He plans to doom Rhys's kind. This chilling revelation shifted her entire understanding of the threat. The stakes had just soared. Her internal conflict roared. Could she ever truly be free? Or would her destiny always be dictated by the power she unknowingly held? She had to tell Rhys. Now. The moment Evelyn shared her fragmented discovery with Rhys, the air in their hidden cave sanctuary crackled. His golden eyes, usually a pool of ancient wisdom, blazed with immediate, terrifying fury. He didn't question her. He didn't doubt. Because the truth resonated with the deep, painful knowledge he carried about the great fading. What's worse, the idea of Vance corrupting a moon-blessed mate. It was an abomination. He's performing a dark ritual, Rhys rasped, his voice a low growl that vibrated through the very stones of the cave. He means to bind your essence, to siphon it, to twist it for his own power. He wants to control the moon-blessed power to make himself invincible, even if it means destroying all true Lycan purity. He moved with a predator's grace, disappearing into the shadows of the forest. Rhys spent the next hours tracking, observing, like a phantom in the night. He used his Lycan senses, his unique scent-reading abilities to find the hidden ritual site within Vance's heavily guarded compound. There, he confirmed everything. He overheard Vance giving orders. He saw symbols carved into the stone. He felt the vile hum of dark magic. And just like that, the terrible truth became undeniable. Vance's plan was more sinister than even Evelyn had imagined. He returned to the cave, his face grim. His shoulders, usually so strong, seemed burdened by the weight of this new horror. "It's worse than I thought, Evelyn," he said, his voice raw with suppressed rage. "He knows. About the fading. About your power. He believes he can use it to annihilate my kind, to ensure his Ironclaw pack reigns supreme through corrupted magic." Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The sheer malice of Vance's ambition sent shivers down her spine. The core emotional question, can love forged in desperation overcome ancient curses and societal chains, proving that true power lies not in control, but in unity, now burned with fierce urgency. This wasn't just about her escape. This was about saving an entire race from eternal damnation. Her sacrifice, Rhys's ancestral burden, Vance's twisted ambition, all intertwined. Her internal monologue screamed, "I can't let him do this. I won't." This chilling revelation was the midpoint shift. The game had changed. The stakes were no longer merely personal, they were existential. Their race's extinction was now a ticking clock. The silence in the cave after Rhys's revelation roared. It was heavier than any storm. Evelyn felt the weight of it, the colossal burden of his people resting on her shoulders. But that initial horror solidified into fierce resolve. She wasn't just a captive bride-to-be anymore. She was the key. She was the moon-blessed. And she would fight. For Rhys. For his pack. For their future. "We have to stop him," Evelyn stated, her voice surprisingly steady. "Before he completes the ritual. Before the wedding." Rhys nodded, his jaw tight. The wedding. It is merely a pretense. The ritual. That is the true purpose. He called for his most trusted lieutenants. A small, elite group of Moonhowler warriors emerged from the shadows of the forest. Silent, deadly. Their loyalty to Rhys, their alpha, was absolute. Their faces, etched with the grim lines of their fading race, looked upon Evelyn with a mix of awe and desperate hope. She was their last chance. Because of that, the pressure intensified. Together, they formulated a desperate, high-risk plan. They discussed Vance's compound defenses, the patrol routes, the guards. Every detail was crucial. Rhys spoke of old tunnels, of hidden passages, of the Ironclaw's blind spots. Evelyn, using her knowledge of the estate's layout, provided vital details. She talked about the hidden service entrance, the secret garden path, because she had always explored the estate's every nook and cranny. Her flaw of restlessness, now a strategic asset. It will be dangerous, Rhys warned, his golden eyes meeting hers, dark with the weight of their gamble. Many could fall, including you. He reached out, his hand covering hers. His touch was warm, real, a promise of safety. And then a deeper promise. Their bond. Their shared future. I know, Evelyn whispered. She squeezed his hand. Her voice trembled, but not from fear. From fierce resolve. I'm ready. I have to be. For your people. For us. She knew the clock was ticking. The wedding day, the ritual, it was barely hours away. A shiver, both of fear and desperate anticipation, ran down her spine. The fate of pure Lycans, the balance of power, their impossible love. All hinged on this one desperate gamble. And just like that, they committed. Their hands clasped, a silent promise hanging in the air. The morning air smelled of jasmine and fear. Evelyn stood before the mirror, encased in layers of white silk and lace. Her wedding gown. It felt less like a dress and more like a shroud. Her heart, a trapped bird, beat a frantic rhythm against her ribs. This was it. The day of the ritual. The day Vance planned to steal her essence. She had tried to send Rhys a final signal, a hidden message in a coded flower arrangement on the porch. But then, his men were everywhere, guarding everything. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't get a moment alone. Her father, Silas, looked pale but determined. Evelyn, my dear, it's time. His voice held a forced cheer. He seemed unaware of the sinister undertones that vibrated around Vance. How could he be so blind, Evelyn wondered. The house, usually so grand, felt like a tomb. It was buzzing with Ironclaw pack members. Their presence felt like a tightening noose. Vance's scent, thick and musky, was everywhere. It made her skin crawl. As she stepped outside, the early sun felt cold. The air, crisp. A magnificent carriage draped in white ribbons awaited. But then, a shadow fell across the path. Alpha Vance. His smile was wide. Too wide. It didn't reach his eyes. Those eyes, cold as glacial ice, gleamed with triumph. He took her hand, pulling her forward. His grip was a vice. My Luna, he murmured, his voice a low growl only she could hear. The true ceremony begins now. Without warning, his grip tightened. He yanked her, hard. Her precious gown, hours of meticulous work, ripped with a sickening tear. Pearls scattered like frozen tears across the ground. Evelyn cried out, a shocked gasp stolen by the wind. She tried to pull away. She twisted. But his strength was immense. He was a force of nature. He threw her, unceremoniously, into a dark, suffocating prison wagon that had been disguised as a ceremonial carriage. The interior smelled of damp earth and stale fear. The door slammed shut with a heavy thud. Her world tilted. Her wedding dress, now torn and bloodied from the rough contact, clung to her. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness, but of pure terror and rage. She was trapped. Vance was taking her, not to a church, to him, to his dark ritual. The wagon lurched forward, rattling violently down the winding road. As it gained speed, a primal roar, distant but unmistakable, pierced the cold morning air. Rhys. He was coming. She felt it, clear as day, through their bond. A desperate, primal anguish. And just like that, her nightmare was real. The world narrowed to a single agonizing scream. Evelyn felt it, a raw, visceral pain that tore through their mate bond. It was her pain, her fear, her violation. And then, a wave of cold fury, so immense it threatened to shatter her own fragile sanity, crashed over her. Rhys. His rage. She could feel him. He was like a living storm. Every thrum of her own pulse beat with his desperate anguish. The air thickened around her, vibrating with the sheer force of his Lycan fury. She heard a guttural roar closer now, a sound that ripped through the morning mist like thunder. Rhys. He was coming. His rage, a consuming fire, fueled by the agonizing pulse of her moon-blessed essence being dragged away. It was a direct assault on her, on him, on his very bloodline. Because if Vance succeeded, the great fading would claim them all. He was moving, fast, a blur of dark fur and deadly grace across the plains. The wagon bounced violently. Evelyn was thrown against the cold, hard wall. She heard the distant sounds of chaos, shouts, the clash of steel, the terrifying snarls of wolves, no, of Lycans. Vance's pack. They were fighting. And Rhys was at the center of it. She could almost see him. A magnificent black wolf, his fur rippling with barely contained power, his golden eyes blazing with an inferno of vengeance. His determination was absolute, unyielding. "Alpha Vance! They're through the north gate!" A terrified voice screamed from outside the wagon. "It's the Shadow Fang and the Moon Howlers! He's tearing through everything!" Vance's voice, surprisingly calm despite the chaos, drifted back. "He's too late. The ritual has begun. The Moon Blessed will be mine." Evelyn's blood ran cold. The ritual. She could feel a strange pressure building around her, cold tendrils of magic beginning to coil around her essence. Time was running out. She pounded on the door of the wagon, desperate. "Rhys!" Her voice was a raw cry. He's starting the ritual!" She felt the mate bond pulse, a frantic beacon, screaming the urgency. She didn't know what scared her more, Vance's power or the desperate, impossible odds Rhys was facing. Meanwhile, outside, Rhys was a whirlwind of primal force. His claws ripped through flesh and bone. His jaws snapped with deadly precision. He moved with a singular purpose. Evelyn, his promised mate, the hope of his people. He would tear through mountains. He would carve through armies. He would leave a trail of destruction in his wake until Evelyn was safely back in his arms. And just like that, the true meaning of a Lycan's wrath descended upon the Western Territory. The wagon lurched. It ground to a halt. Evelyn braced herself, her breath catching in her throat. The door creaked open, revealing the grim faces of Alpha Vance's guards. Their eyes, cold and triumphant, dragged her out. The air here was heavy, oppressive. It smelled of old dust, damp stone, and something else, something ancient and vile. They were deep within Vance's compound, not in a church. This was a hidden chamber, a ritual site. She was hauled roughly across the stone floor. It was cold against her torn gown. Around her, symbols glowed faintly, carved into the very rock. Candles flickered, casting eerie shadows. Vance stood at the center, clad in dark, formal robes, his eyes gleaming with a manic fervor. His beta, a hulking brute with scars crisscrossing his face, moved to bind her. "No," Evelyn cried. She struggled, twisting against their grasp. Her moon-blessed power, normally dormant, flickered in raw defiance. A faint hum vibrated through her, a desperate protest. The air thickened. It burned. Vance merely smiled, a cruel, knowing twist of his lips. "Such spirit," Vance purred, his voice resonating with a strange power. "A pity it will be extinguished, or rather, redirected." He stepped closer. His gaze was fixed on her, assessing. "You feel it, don't you, Luna? The pull, the ancient magic. It responds to my will. It will be mine." His touch, cold and corrupt, settled on her forehead. A wave of ice washed over her, chilling her to the bone. Pain erupted. It wasn't just physical, it was deep, soul deep. Her moon-blessed essence, the very core of her being, felt like it was being stretched, pulled apart. She cried out, a strangled sound. The tendrils of Vance's dark magic, sharp as needles, burrowed into her. They sought to unravel her, to claim her, to twist her pure power for his sick design. She felt her unique connection to Rhys, their mate bond flicker. It dimmed, it strained, it was almost breaking. "Rhys," she whimpered, a desperate, silent plea. Her internal monologue screamed, "He's losing! I'm losing!" The core emotional question hammered at her. Can love forged in desperation truly overcome chains imposed by such power and corruption? Right now, unity felt impossible. She was alone, trapped. As the heavy doors to the ritual chamber creaked open, revealing the distant sounds of a brutal battle, a primal roar echoing closer. Rhys had arrived, but was he too late? The roar Rhys had unleashed echoed in the chamber, a primal promise, but then it was swallowed by the sounds of a brutal battle, a symphony of crashing wood, guttural growls, and the sharp clang of steel. Evelyn, still bound, twisted her head. She saw flashes through the narrow gaps in the chamber door. Rhys's moon howlers were fighting, fiercely, like their very lives depended on it, which, truthfully, they did. But Vance's Ironclaw pack, they were too many. They moved with a chilling efficiency. They seemed fueled by a dark energy. "His Alpha is here," Vance purred, his voice slick with triumph. He stood over Evelyn, his shadow long and menacing. Foolish Alpha. He overestimates his strength. He believes love can conquer all. He chuckled, a cold, dry sound that grated on her nerves. But love is merely a weakness to exploit. It's a pretty cage to keep the prey. Evelyn felt a sharp, searing pain as Vance's corrupted magic intensified. It pulsed around her, tightening its hold on her moon-blessed essence. She gasped, her vision blurred. She heard Rhys's fierce snarls grow more distant. He was being pushed back. She felt it through their bond, a growing frustration, a weary ache. What's worse, a familiar voice, one of Rhys's trusted lieutenants, screamed. Then, silence. A heavy, dreadful silence. Her heart plummeted. "One less pure blood," Vance murmured, almost to himself. He smiled, a truly evil thing. The great fading. It cannot be stopped by brute force. Only true power. Only my power. He turned his gaze back to Evelyn, his eyes burning with a manic fervor. "Because your magic will become my power, Luna. It will be the fuel for my dominance." He raised his hands, beginning a new chant. The air grew thick. The carved symbols on the floor beneath her began to glow with a sickly green light. Evelyn struggled against her bonds. She pushed. She pulled. No matter how hard she tried, her limbs were leaden. Despair, a chilling wave, threatened to consume her. She could feel Rhys out there, fighting. But he was losing ground. And she was losing herself. The very thought made her soul ache. The core emotional question, can love forged in desperation overcome ancient curses and societal chains, proving that true power lies not in control, but in unity, now felt like a fading whisper. She felt completely helpless. The pain intensified. It was fire, ice. It burned through Evelyn's veins, straight to her very core. Vance's chanting grew louder, more insistent. The green light from the symbols pulsed, mirroring the agony in her own body. Her moon-blessed power, so new, so fragile, cried out. It fought back, but it was like a small bird trapped in a hurricane. She felt it, clear as day, being stretched, twisted. She could feel the corruption seeping in, tainting its purity. Her vision swam. She cried out. A strangled, guttural sound that tore from her throat. This is it, her essence. It was fading, because Vance was stealing it, bit by agonizing bit. What followed was a terrifying coldness spreading from her limbs. It crept upwards. She felt herself losing control, not just of her body, of her very spirit. Her connection to Rhys, their precious mate bond, flickered like a dying candle flame. It dimmed. It strained. It was almost breaking. His rage, once a roaring fire, was now a distant, muffled echo, like a dream. Meanwhile, outside the chamber, Rhys was a whirlwind of primal fury. He tore through Vance's soldiers, a magnificent black blur of claws and teeth. He fought with the desperation of a dying race. His golden eyes, usually sharp with focus, were clouded with anguish. He felt Evelyn's pain. He felt the cold touch of Vance's corrupt magic spreading. It was an unbearable agony. His Moonhowler warriors fought valiantly, yet their numbers dwindled. He saw his beta, Silas, fall. A direct hit. He stumbled, his body screaming in protest, a growing despair. He wasn't reaching her. He couldn't. Vance's voice, a triumphant sneer, echoed through the walls. The Luna weakens, Alpha. Her gift, it flows to me. The great fading claims you now. Your pure blood will be nothing more than dust. The words pierced Rhys like physical blows. He felt the prophecy closing in. He felt the crushing weight of his people's inevitable doom. He felt the fragile thread of hope, Evelyn, fraying. Evelyn, dimly aware of the words, felt a profound, aching loneliness. The mate bond, her lifeline to Rhys, was barely a whisper. Was he losing? Was she failing him? Her head lolled. Her consciousness began to fray. She was slipping away. Her inner voice, a desperate plea, screamed, "Please, Rhys, don't let him win." But the darkness closed in, heavy, cold. Just like that, the glimmer of hope faded. Darkness. Not just the dim light of the chamber, but a profound, suffocating blackness that enveloped Evelyn's mind. Her moon-blessed power, once a warm hum, was now a painful throb. It was almost subdued. Vance's dark magic, like chains of ice, bound her essence. She was physically spent, emotionally drained. Despair washed over her, cold and absolute. She questioned everything. Had her secret love been a foolish dream? Was she truly strong enough to be a Luna, to defy such evil? Or was she just a simple girl caught in a world she couldn't comprehend? "I'm not a Luna," her internal monologue whispered, bleak and defeated. "I'm just Evelyn, and I'm failing." The goal of saving Rhys's people, of finding true unity, seemed utterly impossible now. Her personal stake felt crushing. Meanwhile, outside, Rhys reached the inner sanctum. He stood before a final, shimmering barrier. It pulsed with Vance's foul, corrupted magic. It was impenetrable. He battered against it. With every blow, he felt the agony of Evelyn's fading energy. He felt her hope dimming. He felt the cold, hard truth. He was too late. His pack, his ancestors, they were doomed. His heart, a leaden weight, sank in his chest. His burden, the great fading, was no longer a prophecy. It was reality. Because he had failed. He stumbled back, gasping, his magnificent Lycan form flickering in the torchlight. He saw the bodies of his fallen warriors, his loyal beta, lying still. His strength, his fury. It meant nothing. It was not enough. He was a powerful alpha, feared, but utterly, completely helpless. He pressed his forehead against the cold stone wall, a guttural sound of pure anguish tearing from his throat. Evelyn. My Luna. My moon blessed. The bond, stretched thin, was almost gone. What's worse, he remembered his grandmother's stories, the old ones, about how Lycans, when truly lost, would sometimes simply cease, fade away to nothingness. Was this their end? Was this his end? His flaw of solitary burden, of believing he had to carry everything himself, had led him here, to this moment, to this crushing defeat. The core emotional question now felt like a cruel mockery. Can love forged in desperation overcome ancient curses and societal chains, proving that true power lies not in control, but in unity? He had fought. He had loved. And he had lost. As the silence roared around Evelyn, a quiet, bleak resignation settled over her. The ritual sounds intensified. Vance's laughter, a chilling echo. She closed her eyes, ready for the end, ready to just fade. She didn't know what scared her more, being taken by Vance, or simply ceasing to be. This was her crucible moment. This was the dark night of her soul. The silence in Evelyn's mind had been a suffocating blanket, cold, heavy. She had resigned herself. She was just Evelyn, a thorn, a sacrifice. But then a flicker, a tiny defiant spark deep within the core of her moon-blessed essence. It was faint, yet it burned. She remembered Rhys's face, his golden eyes filled with a belief so fierce it had shaken her very world. She remembered the touch of his hand warm against hers, his rasping voice promising her purpose. My Luna, my moon-blessed. No, she thought. The word was a silent roar. No, she was not just Evelyn. She was his, and she wouldn't let Vance steal that. Not from her, not from Rhys, not from his people. What followed was a raw surge of will. It wasn't logical, it was instinct. It was the primal fight of her very soul. She pushed back against the cold, icy tendrils of Vance's ritual. It was agonizing, like tearing free from frozen chains. But she kept pushing. A groan tore from her lips. Her body arched. Her moon-blessed power, though still weak, pulsed erratically. It created a momentary, sharp disruption in the ritual's flow. The carved symbols on the floor flickered. The green light sputtered. Vance, absorbed in his dark work, flinched. His eyes snapped open, wide with surprise and a flash of irritation. He had not expected this. Not from her. Not from a human. This unexpected defiance, this tiny act of resistance sent a jolt, a sharp, almost painful surge of energy, through the mate bond. It was faint, fraught with static. But it was there. A beacon in the crushing darkness. It was a lifeline. A desperate, clear pulse that reached Rhys even through the overwhelming barrier that held him at bay. He had been lost, despairing. But then, this. A flicker of her light. A roar of her spirit. It was enough. In that moment, Rhys felt it. Her defiance. Her unbreakable will. It was like a dam breaking inside him. His despair shattered. His golden eyes, previously dulled by anguish, blazed with reborn fury. He slammed his body against the shimmering barrier again, with a force that seemed impossible. "She fights!" his internal monologue roared. "She's fighting!" And just like that, the climb back began. His hope, once lost, now burned like a supernova. Rhys roared, a sound that tore through the compound, raw and magnificent. His magnificent Lycan form pulsed with renewed power. The anguish in his eyes was replaced by a terrifying, cold resolve. He battered the shimmering barrier, not just with brute force, but with the amplified power of a true alpha whose mate was in peril. He used his Lycan senses, locating the barrier's weak points, hitting them with precise, devastating blows. With a final, explosive surge, the corrupted magic shattered, splintering like glass. He was through. He found his remaining moonhowlers, battered but unbroken, still fighting fiercely against Vance's Ironclaw pack. "Alpha is through!" a loyal warrior cried out, his voice hoarse with awe. Rhys didn't stop. He didn't even slow. His presence was like a living storm. He was a whirlwind of black fur and lethal claws. He moved towards the ritual chamber, every step a promise of vengeance. He barked orders. Short, brutal. "Clear the path, protect the rear, no one enters, no one leaves." His voice, though Lycan deep, carried absolute authority. His warriors, exhausted just moments before, surged with renewed vigor. They knew his fury. They knew his purpose. Because he was fighting for their very existence. For their future. Inside the ritual chamber, Evelyn's defiant spark continued to burn. She felt a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in the air. The heavy, oppressive magic of the ritual faltered slightly. The connection to Rhys, their mate bond, strengthened. It pulsed now, strong and clear. A beacon of love, a promise of rescue. She felt his power, his rage, his absolute determination. It was like a balm. It was a shield. She looked at Vance, her eyes blazing with defiance. "You won't win," she thought, her internal monologue a quiet but fierce vow. Because Rhys was coming, and he was unstoppable. She had done her part. Now it was his turn. Her goal was clear, to prepare herself. to focus, to lend him every ounce of her moon-blessed strength, even from within her bonds. Her breathing deepened. She prepared herself for the final confrontation. Every heartbeat pulsed with anticipation. The heavy doors to the ritual chamber burst inward. Wood splintered. Stone cracked. Dust billowed. Rhys stood framed in the doorway, a magnificent, terrifying Lycan. His black fur bristled, his golden eyes blazing with an inferno of vengeance, locked onto Vance. And then they found Evelyn, bound and vulnerable, on the cold stone. A low, guttural snarl ripped from his throat. Mine. The possessive declaration resonated through the very air. Alpha Vance spun, his face contorted with rage. "You dare?" he shrieked. His voice was laced with dark magic. "You interrupt the sacred ritual? You bring chaos here?" He unleashed a burst of corrupted energy. It slammed into Rhys, but the force merely made his fur ripple. It didn't even slow him. Chaos? Rhys's voice was a deep, rumbling growl, echoing with ancient power. He took a step forward, then another. With every step he took, the ground seemed to tremble. "You seek to pervert the moon-blessed power? You doom your own kind with your corruption. You call that order, Vance? That is death." Vance lunged. He shifted into his own Lycan form, smaller than Rhys, but still powerful, his fur a dull, mottled gray, his eyes burning with unnatural green light. He was a creature of twisted ambition. They clashed, a blur of fur and claws, a savage dance of death. Blows landed, growls ripped through the air. The chamber shook with their fury. This was more than a fight. This was a clash of destinies, of pure lineage against corruption, of hope against despair. Evelyn, though still bound, refused to be a passive observer. She focused. She pushed. Her moon-blessed power, rekindled by Rhys's arrival, surged within her. She aimed her will at Vance. The corrupted glow around him flickered. He stumbled. A sharp gasp tore from his throat. He looked at Evelyn, surprised, betrayed, because her magic was fighting back, from within. "She fights you, Alpha!" Rhys roared, pressing his advantage. His voice thrilled with triumph. "She rejects your corruption!" Meanwhile, Rhys's Moonhowler warriors, having followed their Alpha's path of destruction, burst into the chamber. They engaged Vance's remaining guards, preventing any interference in the Alpha showdown. The air thickened. It was a symphony of chaos, a promise of finality. The core emotional question now hung, heavy and raw. Can love forged in desperation truly overcome chains imposed by such power and corruption? The answer was about to be decided. The ritual chamber pulsed with raw, untamed power. Rhys, a magnificent black blur, collided with Alpha Vance. Their impact shook the very stones of the ancient chamber. It wasn't just a fight. It was a primal symphony of growls, snarls, and the tearing of flesh. Vance, fueled by his corrupted magic, fought with desperate ferocity. He clawed. He bit. He was a creature of twisted ambition. But Rhys was pure. He was strength. He was destiny. Every move was fueled by his burning love for Evelyn, by his absolute need to save his people. Evelyn watched, eyes wide, from her bonds. She pushed. She pulled. Her moon-blessed power surged through her, a desperate roar against Vance's hold. She felt his corrupt magic, a sickly green aura wrapping around Vance. And then she attacked it. Not with physical force, but with pure will. She mentally slammed her newly awakened energy into his shield, making it crack. She focused. She pushed. Just like that, Vance staggered. His shield flickered. A sharp gasp tore from his throat. "She fights you, Alpha!" Rhys roared, his voice laced with triumph. He pressed his advantage. His golden eyes, blazing with an inferno of vengeance, locked onto Vance's momentarily distracted form. Because of Evelyn's disruption, a crucial opening appeared. Rhys moved, fast, a blur of pure Lycan fury. He lunged, a blur of fur and fury. Vance screamed, a human sound. It was cut short. Rhys's jaws clamped down. There was a sickening crack. The air thickened with magic. Vance's corrupted green aura exploded outwards, then dissipated. His body slumped, lifeless, still. The monstrous reign of the Ironclaw Alpha was over. Just like that, the core emotional question, can love forged in desperation overcome ancient curses and societal chains, proving that true power lies not in control, but in unity, was answered with a resounding yes. Unity had prevailed. The remaining Ironclaw guards, witnessing the brutal defeat of their alpha, dropped their weapons. Their eyes, wide with terror, turned to Rhys. His chest heaved, his breath ragged. He was covered in blood. Not all of it his own. He was the undisputed victor. The air, once thick with malevolence, now vibrated with raw, pure power. A promise of peace. A promise of a future. Rhys looked at Evelyn. His golden eyes, filled with profound relief, locked onto hers. He was coming for her. Rhys didn't hesitate. He was a magnificent creature, still shimmering with the raw power of his recent victory. He moved towards Evelyn. With every step he took, the fear that had gripped her heart for so long began to melt. He reached her. His strong hands, still tipped with wolf claws, worked swiftly. They tore through her bonds, ripped the cruel ropes from her wrists. He pulled her into his arms. Her torn dress, a symbol of her violation, crumbled around them. Evelyn buried her face in his neck. His fur was soft against her cheek. His scent, pine, rain, and something else, something uniquely him, filled her senses. It was home. It was safety. A deep, shuddering sigh escaped her lips. Tears, hot and real, streamed down her face. She felt his solid presence, his warmth, the steady beat of his heart. She was safe. She was free. And just like that, the agonizing pain of the ritual began to recede because his touch was pure healing. "My Luna," Rhys rasped, his voice rough with emotion. He held her tight. His body still trembled from the fight. "My Evelyn, I thought I was too late." "Never," she whispered, her voice choked. "You were never too late." She pulled back slightly, her gaze sweeping over his battle-worn form. She saw the fresh gashes, the blood staining his dark fur. She reached out, her fingers tracing a deep wound on his flank. "You're hurt." "It's nothing," he rumbled. But his Lycan body, so powerful, still needed healing. His pack needed him. Meanwhile, his Moon Howler warriors entered the chamber. They looked weary, but triumphant. They began tending to their wounded, their movements efficient and respectful. There was a somber quiet, a painful realization. Many had fallen. Rhys's loyal beta, Silas, lay still. The joy of victory was bittersweet. A heavy ache of loss settled in Rhys's chest because his pack had paid a steep price for this triumph. He looked at Evelyn. His eyes, dark with grief, also held a fierce, unwavering love. The remaining Ironclaw pack members, broken and leaderless, knelt. They lowered their heads. They recognized the true Alpha. They accepted their new fate. Rhys, with Evelyn in his arms, surveyed the scene. His eyes, golden and wise, saw not just the end of a battle, but the beginning of a new era. What followed was a quiet strength, a promise of healing, and just like that, Evelyn knew her true purpose. Their home wasn't a place. It was him. Weeks later, the Western Territory breathed again. The air felt cleaner, brighter. The fear that had gripped the human settlers, the despair that had plagued the Lycan lines, slowly lifted. Evelyn, no longer the confined daughter of a cattle baron, walked through the rejuvenated lands as Luna. Her moon-blessed magic, now fully awakened, flowed freely, subtly enhancing the world around her. She felt the land respond to her presence. The trees grew taller, the streams ran clearer, the very air sang with life, because she was healing the land, because she was healing them. She walked beside Rhys, not behind him. They were partners, equals, their hands often entwined, a silent testament to their unbreakable bond. His grim facade, once a heavy burden, had softened. His laughter, a deep, rumbling sound, was heard more often. He led his revitalized moon howler pack with a newfound joy. His burden of the great fading was gone, replaced by a hopeful future. They held meetings with the remaining Ironclaw elders, slowly, patiently guiding them towards the ancient ways of harmony and respect, rather than dominance and corruption. One evening, as the moon climbed high, painting the world in silver, Rhys and Evelyn stood on a familiar bluff. It was the same one from the prologue, the very place where Rhys had felt the despair of his fading kind. Now, the sounds of happy Lycan pups playing echoed from below. The scent of a thriving pack filled the air, the faint, sweet smell of prosperity. Rhys turned to her. His golden eyes, filled with profound love, were a beacon in the moonlight. He pulled her close. "My Luna," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "You saved us all. You brought life back to a dying world." He kissed her. A long, tender kiss. It was a promise, a vow. And just like that, fire bloomed beneath her skin. The space between them burned. Her soul answered. Their story became a legend, whispered around campfires, told among the revived Lycan packs. A human Luna, a moon-blessed mate, who, with her fierce alpha, Rhys Shadowfang Lycan, had overcome tyranny, defeated extinction, and proved that love, forged in the fires of desperation, could indeed reshape destiny. Epilogue. Decades later, the Thorne Lycan lineage flourished. The Western Territory, vibrant and free, thrived under the leadership of Alphas and Lunas who carried the strong, pure blood of Rhys and Evelyn. The sound of happy Lycan howls echoed far and wide. Their love, a foundational myth, ensured generations of peace and prosperity. It wasn't just a happy ending. It was a new beginning, forever bound. Thank you so much for watching this video. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed what you saw, we've got a whole library of other videos packed with more great content, just like this, waiting for you on our channel. So, why not dive into another one right now? And hey, if you want to make sure you don't miss out on our next upload, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. We'd love to have you join our community and see you in the next video. Thanks again.